I knew I'd missed the last bus the second I saw the empty stop, just me, the flickering street light, and the wind pushing trash across the cracked pavement. But when I turned around to check for a cab, everyone else at the station was gone, like they'd slipped right out of existence. It was 1:27 a.m. when the schedule said the final Route 12 would come crawling up the hill. I'd worked late to late and hadn't planned for the rain or the biting cold that settled into my jacket like needles. The bus stop was tucked under a single flickering lamp, buzzing so loud it almost drowned out the distant hum of the city. The platform should have been packed with night shift stragglers and drunks heading home. But there was no one. Just a half-finished coffee cup on the bench and a damp newspaper drifting down the curb. I checked my phone, 1% battery. No signal. Figures. I walked the length of the stop twice, peering down the road for headlights. Nothing but the wet gleam of asphalt and the rustle of dead leaves swirling across the lane. I told myself I'd wait 10 more minutes. 10 more and I'd call a rideshare, charge the trip to my overdraft account. But when my phone finally died in my hand, I felt it, the shift. The quiet thickened, swallowing the usual hum of traffic. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. I sat down on the cold bench. That's when I noticed it. Footprints, not mine. Fresh, muddy tracks looping around the edge of the platform, leading right up to the map display. They circled it 3 times, then stopped dead at the far end, like whoever made them just vanished. I told myself someone must have just left, maybe a maintenance worker, but there were no tire marks on the slick road, no sound of a car pulling away. The streetlight flickered once, twice, then went out completely. I heard something then, not a bus engine, not footsteps. Breathing, slow, hoarse breathing, coming from behind the glass of the empty ticket booth. I leaned forward, squinting. But the booth was dark inside, just a reflection of the empty street, and my own pale face staring back. I should have left then. Walked into the night, found a diner, called someone, anyone. But my legs felt rooted. The air felt thick, clinging to my skin like damp sheets. A voice crackled over the busted speaker next to the route sign, static at first, then words I almost understood. End of the line. Stay seated. I spun around, expecting to see a bus rolling up, headlights cutting through the mist. Nothing. The breathing behind the ticket glass grew louder, closer. I stepped back, heels hitting the curb. I felt something crunch under my foot, looked down. A bus ticket, soaked and half-torn. My name was printed on it. I never bought a ticket. My heart hammered so hard I tasted copper. I backed away from the booth, I starting to the road, hoping for any sign of another soul. And that's when I saw them, shapes, half hidden in the fog, drifting down the hill. Figures standing motionless along the road's edge. At first I thought they were passengers waiting, like me. But they didn't move, didn't breathe, just stared. Shadows with no faces, one by one. They stepped closer to the stop, silent, gliding. I stumbled backward until I hit the bench again. The ticket in my hand felt warm now, damp with sweat. The speaker crackled again. Your bus is here. No engine. No lights. Just the fog swallowing the road until it pressed against my shoes. I can't say why I'm still here, sitting on this bench, ticket clutched in my shaking hand. I could run. I could scream. But I think if I do, they'll follow. Maybe they already have. If you ever find yourself at the Route 12 stop after the last bus leaves, don't wait for the next one. Some rides don't take you home. At first, I thought it was a prank, until the messages predicted things that hadn't happened yet, and each one ended with, "Don't trust him." The number wasn't saved in my contacts, but the messages called me by my childhood nickname, a name no one uses anymore. The first message came on a rainy Tuesday night. "You'll spill your coffee at 8:13 tomorrow." Don't trust him, I laughed. Thought it was one of my friends messing with me, maybe Eric from work. He's always pulling dumb stunts like that. The next morning, I was running late, juggling my bag and an umbrella, when I tripped going up the front steps to the office. The lid popped off my travel mug, and the coffee sloshed all over my pants. I checked my phone. 8:13 a.m. Weird coincidence. That's all. I brushed it off. Until the next message. Your boss will call you in at 4:52. He'll say it's nothing, but don't believe him. Don't trust him. And just like that, at 4:52, my phone buzzed. Internal line, my boss, Greg, asked me to swing by his office real quick. Said it was just a check-in. Said everything looked great. But the way he kept smiling tight-lipped, eyes twitching just a little made me uneasy. Like he was holding something back. I started checking the number. It was always the same VIN known, no caller ID. I tried texting back. Who was this? Nothing. That night, I didn't sleep well. I kept waking up to the hum of my phone charging beside the bed. There were no new messages. Just silence. Then, 2 days later, check his browser history. 11:03. Don't trust him. That morning, Greg left his office for a meeting. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe curiosity. Maybe fear. I walked in like I was dropping off a file. His computer was still logged in. At 11:02, I pulled up his browser. At 11:03, I found the search results, how to remotely access employee laptops without detection, HR loopholes for immediate termination, and folders at dozens of them. Files named after employees, including me. My stomach dropped. That afternoon, I confronted him. I didn't say much, just asked him if there was anything he wanted to tell me. He smiled that same tight smile and said, "You've always been a little paranoid." That night, I got another message. He knows you looked. He'll try tonight. To 17, lock the back door. Don't trust him. I locked everything. Every window. Every door. Sat in the dark with a baseball bat in my lap and my phone screen glowing in my hand. At exactly to 17, there was a sound at the back door. A single click. Then silence. I waited, barely breathing. Then I heard footsteps. Crunching on the gravel outside. Slow. Deliberate. Then, nothing. The next morning, I called in sick. I didn't go back to work. That afternoon, I got a final message. This is the last one. You're safe for now. But if you ever see him again, don't speak. Don't follow. Don't let him touch you. And whatever you do, don't trust him. Then the number disconnected. My texts wouldn't send. It was like it had never existed. I quit my job that week. Moved cities. Changed my number. For a while, things felt normal again. Until last night. I was walking home from the store, and a man crossed the street behind me. I couldn't see his face, but he moved with a familiarity that made my skin crawl. Like he knew my rhythm and matched my pace, turned when I turned. I ducked into a side street and let him pass. When I looked back, he was standing under a flickering streetlight, and I swear to God, it was Greg, but something was wrong with his face. It looked blurred, like it didn't want to be recognized. I ran. When I got home, my phone buzzed. No caller ID, just a single message. You let him follow. It's too late now. He wasn't there the first time we drove past, but by the third loop, he was standing inches from the fog line, reaching down to grab something none of us could see. Each time, a little closer. Each time, a little more real. It started as a stupid idea just for bored college friends driving around aimlessly past midnight on one of those late summer nights that hum with cicadas and bad decisions. Jared was at the wheel of his old Honda, windows down, music low. I sat passenger. Sam and Erica were in the back, half asleep, half scrolling through their phones. We'd just passed the same long stretch of back road for the second time, one of those forgotten rural highways that sits just outside cell service and reason. Trees arched overhead like they were leaning in to listen. And then we saw him, a man in a torn gray hoodie and jeans, standing on the gravel shoulder, head bowed, back turned. He bent down slowly, reached toward the dirt, then stood again empty-handed, like he'd just picked something up. But didn't actually take anything, Did you see that? I asked, glancing back. Jared snorted. Creepers probably high. Let's do another loop. None of us objected. The road was a 10-mile loop, part of an old highway bypassed by newer routes. We passed nothing but woods and broken fences for miles. The second time, he was still there, only this time, closer to the edge. Right foot on gravel, left foot almost brushing the white line. He did the same motion. Bent, reached, rose. Nothing in his hands. No way, he's just standing there doing that. Erica muttered. Did you see his face? Sam asked. I couldn't. None of us had. His hood was pulled low, shadowed, but there was something wrong in the way he moved, too slow, too careful, like he was handling something fragile or sacred. We looped again. Why? I don't know. Curiosity, dumb thrill-seeking, or maybe something else, some pull. The third pass is where things changed. He was at the very edge now, standing with toes right on the white fog line, still reaching, still rising. But this time, his head turned. He didn't look at us. Not exactly. His face turned with a natural precision, like it was on a hinge. And though we were moving fast, I swear I saw his eyes. Not wide, not glowing, just wrong. Too empty, too deep. Like looking into the bottom of a dry well. Jared slammed on the gas. Okay, that's enough. But Erica leaned forward. Wait. What if he's collecting something? Like what? I asked. I don't know, she whispered. Memories. Or time. Or people. We laughed, nervously. But nobody asked to go around again. About 10 minutes down the road, we saw the light, a soft glow coming from an old gas station that looked like it hadn't been open in years. Jared pulled in, figuring we'd catch signal and figure out where the hell we were. That's when I saw the gravel. The same crushed stone shoulder. Same broken reflector post. Same patch of weeds I'd noticed earlier. He was here, I said. No, this isn't the same stretch, Jared argued. We turned off, but it was. I knew it. The trees were the same. The bend in the road. And then we all heard it scrape or crunch. Footsteps on gravel. From behind the building. Jared turned the engine off. Why, I'll never understand. For a moment, there was silence. Then a soft, wet sound. Like something heavy being dragged. We didn't speak. Didn't move. Then Erica screamed. He was there on the other side of the lot, walking toward us, slow and steady. He wasn't bending down anymore. His hands were cupped together, holding something invisible, cradling it like a gift. His hood was still down, but this time, he was looking at us. We didn't wait. Jared peeled out so hard we fishtailed on the blacktop. I turned in my seat as we tore off, and in the red glow of the taillights, I saw him place whatever he was holding gently on the side of the road. Like setting down a baby. We didn't stop again until we hit a main road with cell bars. Nobody talked. Not even when we got home. That was 3 years ago. I sometimes dream of him now. Bent over, reaching, standing, closer. Every time I pass a stretch of road alone, especially at night, I check the shoulder, and I never, ever go back the same way. At first, it was harmless. My roommate mumbled nonsense in his sleep, just background noise through the wall. But then he started whispering names, dates, and secrets I'd never told anyone. I moved in with Matt 6 months ago. Cheap rent, decent location. 3rd floor, walk up in a creaky old building that always smelled faintly like dust and wet drywall. We'd met through a mutual friend, quiet guy, clean, barely home. Ideal roommate. The sleep talking started the 2nd week. Just soft mumbling at first. I'd be reading or trying to fall asleep, and through the shared wall I'd hear it garbled fragments, the rise and fall of his voice like he was deep in conversation. I thought it was funny. Even recorded a few clips on my phone. Harmless, weird stuff. Phrases like, left the door open again, or don't let them in this time, chalked it up to stress or dreams. But then came the night I heard him say my name. Clear as day, through the wall. Ben, don't go to the basement tomorrow. It jolted me. I sat up, heart hammered. I hadn't told Matt I planned to go to the basement laundry room the next day. I'd just run out of clean socks and figured I'd do it in the morning. Curious and honestly a little freaked out, I asked him at breakfast. He blinked. Basement? Yeah. You said something about it in your sleep. He looked blank. Dude, I've never even been down there. That place gives me the creeps. That stuck with me. Especially because the next morning, I did try to go down only to find the stairwell taped off. Apparently, a pipe had burst overnight, flooding the whole level. Maintenance guy said if anyone had gone down there before they shut it off, they could have been electrocuted. I laughed it off to Matt as coincidence, but it didn't feel like one. From then on, I started listening more carefully. He'd mutter about things that hadn't happened yet but always did, and knock at the door. Don't answer. That same night, a man in a delivery uniform tried to get in wrong apartment. No package. Third floor window. She's watching again. A week later, I noticed an old woman across the street staring at our window for hours. When I waved, she didn't blink. But it wasn't just predictions. He started saying things he shouldn't know. Ben never told his mom what happened in the shed. It wasn't your fault. Not the first time. Not when it burned. Private things. Childhood things. Things I'd never told anyone, especially not a roommate I barely spoke to. I started recording him. Every night. Had hours of files on my phone. And the worst part, his voice was changing. It didn't always sound like Matt. Sometimes deeper. Sometimes strained, like two voices layered on top of each other. Then one night, he went quiet. That was almost worse. I couldn't sleep. Waiting for it, the silence stretched on like it was holding its breath. Then at 3:03 a.m. he screamed. Not a word, just one long, piercing scream that froze the blood in my veins. I ran to his door, slammed it open. He was sitting upright in bed, eyes wide, tears streaming down his face. But he wasn't awake. He whispered, "They know you hear them now." Then he collapsed, snoring again like nothing had happened. I didn't sleep. I played the recording the next morning, hoping it was all a dream. But the message was clear. They know you hear them now. I confronted him the next day. He laughed confused, told me he'd been having nightmares, but didn't remember anything I mentioned. I showed him the recordings. His face drained of color. He admitted something, then said he used to sleep talk as a kid, too. But only in certain places. Old houses. Buildings with bad bones, as his grandmother put it. Places where things linger. That night, I slept with earplugs in. Didn't help. At 3:03, I woke up to silence again. Pulled the plugs out. Nothing. Until I looked at my phone. It was recording. On its own. And in the playback, I heard a voice I didn't recognize. Not Matt. Not me. Whispering. "You were supposed to leave by now. You're keeping him here. He doesn't know what he's carrying." I moved out the next morning. Left the deposit. Blocked Matt. I don't care. I still hear things some nights, faint murmurs under the floorboards of my new place. But I don't listen anymore. I don't want to know what I'm carrying. He got into my car on a deserted stretch of highway and then calmly told me things about my childhood that no one alive should know. Things I've never said out loud. Things I've tried to forget. It was just past midnight when I saw him standing at the edge of the highway, thumb out. Motionless under the flickering green glow of a dying street light. There weren't any other cars for miles. No buildings. No gas stations. Just an endless stretch of empty Nevada desert. Quiet enough to hear my own blood in my ears. Normally, I don't pick up hitchhikers. I've seen too many movies. But something about him didn't set off that internal alarm. He looked clean, calm. Like a college student, maybe mid-20s, jeans, old backpack, a plain gray hoodie with the hood up. So I pulled over. He opened the door without hesitation and slid into the passenger seat like he'd been waiting specifically for me. "Thanks," he said, his voice smooth and quiet. "It's a long walk from where I came from." I gave a polite nod and pulled back onto the road. A few minutes passed in silence. Then, without looking at me, he said, "You still have that scar on your right wrist." From the screen door, I glanced over at him, trying to keep calm. "How do you know about that? You were 5, he said. "Your mom left the door unlatched. Wine caught it and slammed it shut while you were chasing the dog." He was right. Dead right. But I've never told that story to anyone. Not even my wife. He leaned his head back against the seat, as if recalling a distant memory. "You cried for hours. But not because it hurt. You cried because you thought the dog was scared of the blood." I gripped the steering wheel tighter. The desert stretched endlessly ahead, the headlights carving tunnels of white into the darkness. There was nowhere to turn off, no exits, no shoulder, just sagebrush and dust. "Have we met?" I asked, forcing my voice to stay even. He didn't answer. Instead, he looked out the window and said softly, "You still have the dream sometimes, don't you? The one where you're underwater, and you see your grandfather at the bottom of the lake, smiling." I slammed the brakes. Gravel skidded under the tires, the car veering slightly before coming to a stop. "How do you know that?" I demanded. But he didn't flinch. Didn't even turn his head. Just kept looking out the window like he was watching something I couldn't see. "It's not really a dream," he said. "More like a memory of something that never got to happen." My skin prickled. The air inside the car suddenly felt heavy, like the pressure had changed. I rolled down my window to breathe, but all that came in was dry heat and silence. I turned to look at him directly. "Who are you?" He finally looked at me. His eyes were dark, not black. Just empty, like someone had drawn them on with charcoal. "I'm what you forget," he said, his mouth curling slightly. "And what remembers you?" The interior light blinked once, then shut off. My phone in the console went dead. The radio fizzled with a low burst of static before cutting out completely. I threw the car in. "Drive. You need to get out. You're already further than you think," he said, still sitting calmly. "You left the real road 20 miles ago. What does that mean?" He didn't answer. Just stared ahead, then murmured, "Maggie's still waiting for you to say goodbye, you know." I froze. Maggie was my sister. She died when I was 10. I hadn't heard her name spoken aloud in 20 years. "I never told anyone about her," I whispered. He nodded, and for the first time, his expression softened. "But she hears you. In that room, where you cry when no one can see." That broke me. I pressed the brakes again and turned toward him with shaking hands. "What are you?" He opened the door and stepped out onto the highway like he'd never been afraid of anything in his life. As he walked into the dark, he called out, "Next time, remember to close your window. Not everything that wants in is kind." And then he was gone. Just gone. No taillights. No footsteps. Just the desert, the wind, and my own panicked breathing. I drove straight until the sun came up. No sign of him. No signs at all, actually. Just miles of road that didn't show up on GPS. I made it back eventually. But ever since that night, I don't dream the same. Now when I sleep, I see him standing at the bottom of the lake. And sometimes, he smiles. We all remember the boy in room 309, big brown eyes, scraped knees, a giggle that echoed down sterile hospital halls. Yet today, it's like he never existed at all. No file, no wristband, no trace except for the shadows he left behind. I was on night shift when they wheeled him in. He looked about 6, bruised, cold, muttering something over and over that no one could quite catch. The paramedics said they'd found him wandering alone near the woods behind the old railway. No parents, no ID. Just that hospital gown to sizes too big, stained with something dark. We named him John Doe 7, pediatric wing, 3rd floor. I swear he smiled at me when I tucked his blanket under his chin. His skin was ice cold but dry, no fever, no cuts that explain the bruises. He didn't speak when I asked his name, only stared at the ceiling like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. At around 2 a.m., I went back to check on him. His bed was empty, the sheets folded neatly like no one had ever lain there. I hit the call button, thinking maybe he'd wandered into the hall. Kids do strange things when they're scared. But the CCTV feeds showed nothing. No tiny figure slipping past nurses, no doors opening, just a blank screen when the camera should have caught his bed. The next morning, the nurses whispered. His chart was gone, ripped out of the files like a page torn from a notebook, his name on the room's whiteboard. Erase, I asked the front desk. They looked at me like I was nuts. They said no child had been admitted last night. They showed me the log, nothing between midnight and dawn, but we all remembered him. That's when the pranks started, supplies misplaced, flickering lights in empty wards, whispers on the baby monitors, nonsense syllables that made the hair on my arms prickle. More than once, I found tiny handprints on the inside of the nursery glass high up where no child could reach. One night, exhausted, I sat in the break room. The overhead light buzzed, flicked out, then came back on, and there he was, standing behind the coffee machine, grinning like he'd been there the whole time. Same hospital gown, same cold stare. I blinked, and he was gone. But the next morning, someone found all the IV bags emptied on the floor, lined up like dolls waiting for tea. Some staff quit outright. Others swapped to day shifts to avoid the boy who wasn't there. But not me. I needed to know. One night, I printed every security feed from that wing, frame by frame, hour by hour, until I found it. At exactly 3:09 a.m., his room's door swung open by itself. Inside, the shadows didn't match the furniture. They were longer, twisted, shaped like small hands reaching for the walls. I thought I'd imagined it. But the next night, when I walked past 309, I heard him. I giggled sharp, like a nail scraping glass. And a whisper, "Just for me, stay." I turned the handle. The room was empty. No bed, no blankets. But on the far wall, smeared in something dark, was a single word: remember. I did. I still do. They sealed off room 309 after that, said it was for renovations, but we know better. Some nights, new nurses swear they see a boy slip under the door, supplies vanish, pages go missing, always at 3:09. I don't work nights anymore, but when I pass that wing, I still feel the chill, like tiny fingers brushing mine, tugging me back to a room that should be empty. The boy is gone, the files are gone, but some part of him stayed, and it's waiting for the rest of us to forget, just long enough for him to play again. The first time I saw him, he was just a pale blur in the basement window, a shape that didn't move but felt like it was breathing. I thought I imagined it, until I saw him again the next night, closer, pressed against the glass like he was waiting for me to notice. The house was old, older than the cracked paint and warped floors even hinted at. It was the kind of place you told yourself just needed love and fresh paint, and I needed the quiet after the divorce. The real estate agent said the basement was sealed years ago after some flooding, concrete poured over the old stairs, the door bolted shut. You won't even know it's there, she'd laughed. But I knew. I could feel it when I walked over the floor above, cold spots under my feet, like the air beneath me was breathing up through the cracks. The first night it was just creaks and groans, the old house settling, I told myself. But by the third night, I'd stopped sleeping. I kept passing the narrow side window when I took the trash out. The glass was stained from decades of rain and dirt, but that shape behind it was clear enough. The hint of shoulders, the pale smudge of a face. I'd freeze on the steps, garbage bag forgotten, staring until my breath turned sharp in the night air. I tried to brush it off. Maybe a trick of the light, or some reflection. But the next morning, I found something pressed to the inside of the window. An outline on the grimy glass, 5 long smears, as if someone had dragged their fingertips down from the top. I stood there for a long time. The basement window was nearly level with the ground outside, but the cellar floor sat a few feet lower. There was no ledge, no shelf, nothing inside to stand on. And the basement door inside was still bolted tight. I checked it that night, pulled the bolt free, flicked on my flashlight, and cracked the door open. The smell hit me first: wet concrete, mildew, something older. The air was cold enough to sting my nose. I shone the light down. Concrete, cracked walls, an old utility sink rusted brown. Nothing moved. I forced myself to step down the stairs, counting each step, heartbeat drumming in my ears. I scanned every corner, empty. No footprints in the dust. I checked the window from inside. The grime on the glass was thick, but the smears were there, fresh, clean streaks in the dirt. When I climbed back up, I bolted the door and shoved a chair under the knob. I told myself it was ridiculous, but did it anyway. I didn't sleep. Every few minutes I'd hear a dull thud from below. Not loud, more like something shifting its weight, pressing up against the floorboards. Around 3 a.m., the thudding stopped. Silence pressed so hard against my ears I could hear my own pulse. Then the scratching started. Soft at first, a gentle scrape, like nails on old wood. I lay in bed, eyes locked on the ceiling where I knew the basement door sat beneath. The scratching grew steadier, slow, patient. It stopped just before dawn. By the next night, I couldn't help myself. I stood outside with a flashlight, aiming the beam through the basement window. I thought I'd see a reflection, some trick my mind had made out of shadows. But when the light hit the glass, it caught two clear handprints, pressed side by side, right where a face might lean close. And behind those prints, I swear I saw eyes. Small, deep in the dark, blinking once before the light flickered and died in my hand. I haven't gone near the window since. Haven't unbolted the basement door. But at night I still hear the scratching. Sometimes I wake to find cold spots on the floor by my bed, damp footprints that vanish before I can follow them back. I think about sealing the window with bricks, maybe pouring more concrete down the stairs. But sometimes, late at night, I stand at the top of the basement door, my ear pressed to the wood, listening to the gentle tap, tap, tap like a fingertip on glass. It wants me to come closer. I can feel it. And some nights, I wonder how much longer I'll hold out. The steady hum of static was the only sound in my new apartment at midnight, broken by the faint outline of a face flickering beneath the snow-dappled screen. I told myself it was just my imagination until the day it smiled when I did. And the persistent scent of old cigarettes that no amount of scrubbing could erase. Pale eyes, hollow cheeks, a mouth too wide and just on the edge of a grin. When I laughed aloud at my own awkwardness, the face seemed to stutter, smearing wider, as if grinning along with me. My scalp prickled. Maybe the light caught the dust differently. Or the signal interference was to blame. I left the TV on overnight. White noise spilling into the dark. The apartment was silent save for that familiar static hiss. I dared myself to stand. From the edge of my vision, I saw the TV's reflection. The face stared back, but this time it didn't wait for me to move. It raised its hand before I did. But in the deep insomnia hours, I still heard the staticky hum, softer but persistent, and felt eyes watching from every shadow. The face straightened. I lifted my hand. The stranger in the screen lifted theirs too. I spun, expecting nothing, but the staticky figure was pressed against the glass, its mouth open in a silent scream. I yanked the plug from the wall, plunging the room into oppressive silence. Waiting for me to move, to blink, to breathe, afraid that one night it won't wait for me at all. The absence of noise felt worse, charged and trustworthy, like something was poised just out of sight, listening. I squinted, flicked the remote, but every time the static surged, it was there, always watching from the low, flickering corner. But soon, it wasn't just a face faintly glimmering when I passed the screen, for the first time in weeks. I tried to relax, convinced it had all been a trick of exhaustion. It was movement, small at first. A tilt of the head when I stretched. Eyes blinking in time with mine. Not a reflection, something inside, lurking, waiting for the right moment. I turned away, heart racing, and heard the faintest, dusty whisper behind me. When I rubbed the sleep from my eyes before dawn, its pale fingers followed, tracing a mirrored path across its grainy features. My TV, a boxy relic rescued from my parents' garage, was ancient but familiar, comforting, I thought, as I plugged it in and let the static fill the empty room while I unpacked. The move was supposed to be a fresh start, a small, one-bedroom unit with peeling paint, creaky radiators. The air in my apartment turned heavy at night, thick and stale, and the hum from the TV grew deeper, vibrating in my bones. I'd catch myself staring at my own reflection against the darkness, only to realize the face in the static was waiting, lips moving in perfect silence, mimicking me with a fraction of a second's delay. On my first night, I caught the shape of a blurry, almost imperceptible face ghosting the static when the lights were off. Feeling foolish, I muttered jokes at the screen, filling the silence with one-sided banter. The days passed and I shrugged off the knees, telling myself that nerves and city loneliness were playing tricks. By the week's end, I stopped sleeping well. One evening, as rain lashed against the windows and wind howled through the rotten frames, I sat curled up with a blanket, tension knotted in my stomach, testing my nerve. I turned my back and moved across the room, glancing at a tarnished wall mirror hung above my kitchen sink. Goosebumps erupted along my arms. The air felt suddenly cold and brittle. For days, I left the TV unplugged, living amid the oppressive quiet, jumping at every shuffle of footsteps from the upstairs neighbor and every rusty tick of the pipes. Eventually, desperation outweighed my fear. I plugged the TV back in, bracing for static. There was nothing, just snow, empty and endless. As I prepared for bed, I caught movement in the blank screen. You're not alone anymore. Now every night I catch myself glancing at the TV, searching for the faint lines of a face pressed against the static.